Hello. In this video, we're going to talk about how to work with props in React components. So what we've got so far is we've been able to build a web page by breaking it apart into different components. So again, we have our index.js file that renders an app component. Our app component then renders a header and a topic grid. Our topic grid then includes these three topic cards. Right? We've got three copies of a topic card component. Now, of course, these three topics cards all look exactly the same, right? They're always showing the same content. If I try to change it, right, if I want to make it so it doesn't say hypertext markup language and instead this says, for example, CSS, that gets applied to all three cards because they're all built out of the same component, right? And the component says they always look like this. Props are what allows us to be able to make individual components have the same overall component and structure, but different details or different sort of text along with them. So the way that we do that is by specifying what are called props. A prop is short for property, but everyone who's cool, and which is everybody, calls them props. A prop is a way of specifying an argument to a component, specifying some details into that component. So you specify the prop for component when you instantiate it by writing it out like an HTML attribute. So for example, if I was making myself a message item component, and again, it's just rendering a message item, I could give it a message prop and then assign the value hello property to that message. Components can have multiple props in which we separate them as space. Again, the same way we find multiple attributes in HTML. So I could have a user info component that could take a name and a descriptor prop. So it gets two props, the name prop and the descriptor prop. I can make a message item that could have a message, and that message can then be an inline expression, right? Because again, these are just attributes. So just like we've assigned inline expressions to attributes before, I could, for example, pass it a variable or a string of some kind to say that's the prop that I want to pass in. So we can do that to create inputs into individual props. So for example, I can take this topic card and say that I want its title to be HTML. And I want this one's title to be CSS. And I want this one's title to be JavaScript, right? I can give them each a title prop, for example, or a topic prop. Maybe a topic's better, right? Title, we'll do title. I think title is like that structure. So I can give each topic card and say, please, you have a different topic, right? Have a different title, have a different thing that I want to display. And I'm able to pass that in. Note that because we're writing it like HTML, we don't put spaces around the equal symbol, even though technically it works. Like that's the sort of the styling format. Again, it's not JavaScript, it's HTML, even though it's inside the JavaScript. Similarly, I can give each one of these a different URL, right? I can say that this one's image URL could be the image/html icon.png. This one's image URL could be the same thing, but it'll be the HTML icon the CSS icon.png, and this one can have the same thing, but its image URL will be the JavaScript icon.png. Right? I can give them each these different pieces of topic. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to topic. That makes a lot more. That just feels a lot better than the title. Now, also the title. So again, I can specify different attributes into these components. I can say these are what these three pieces are. Note again, I can pass different props. I can add multiple different props along our way. Often we'll actually end up passing lots of different props into components, like 3, 5, 10, 12. There's a lot. You can have lots and lots of different props you pass into components. Okay. So that's how we give inputs into a component, right? When I'm rendering this, I'm saying make me a topic card. I'm specifying the props, the details for what this particular topic card looks like. Okay. Of course, doing that does not yet change my appearance. In order to change my appearance, I have to make it so that the topic card itself, right, the component that actually says what those things look like, use that inputted data. Now, we get that inputted data through the props argument. Remember this guy, this argument we specified for all these components? We always called props with an S. That props is where these inputs come into. So in order to show you what this looks like, I'm going to console log this props argument. I'm just going to log out what is the argument that's coming into these components. Now I'm calling this function 3 times, right? Because I'm calling it once for the first card, once for the second card, once for the third card. So we should see 3 sets of props get logged out in our console. Save, we refresh. And when we do that, we actually see our 3 props get logged out in the console. Now, each of these props, do you see the curly braces? Each one of those props is an object, right? The data type of props is an object. So props, this argument coming in, is an object. It's not a string. It's not a number. It is not an array. It's an object. That object then has properties. Notice the wording there, right? Has properties on that object that match to the props that I specified in the as attributes, right? So I gave this a title attribute and an image URL attribute. So this props object has a title property and an image URL property. So that lets me access those pieces. So if I wanted to get the title out of this thing, right, I could say, let's make ourselves a new local variable that could be the title. I could go to my props and access the title property, right? I'm going to get this title out of this object. That gives me my title. And then I can make it so that my title is then what's being displayed here using an inline expression. And now you'll notice that I'm now passing in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? Those are my titles. Similarly, I can give an image URL to be props.image URL, right? Get the image URL out of that props. And then I can make it so that my image source here will be the image URL. And now each one has a different picture. I should change my alt as well. So this is going to be title plus logo, right? So it'll take whatever the logo is for that topic. Oop, sorry, forgot the coordinates. And there we go. And now I'm able to pass in props and be able to use those props to customize my output. Now, again, these things have to match. Importantly, and this is the really, really hard part, so please pay attention to this. Props is a single argument with one object that contains all of the props together as a single value. Effectively, what happens is that even though I'm listing out lots of different attributes here, 2, 3, 5, a dozen attributes, they're all put into the same basket, right? They're all sort of bundled up together into a single basket of arguments. And what the argument is to this function is going to be just the one basket, right? So it's going to be like, give me the basket of props, right? Give me that basket of all the pieces. And then I go into that basket in order to get out the individual stuff that I need. So like I need the title from the basket, pull the title from the basket. I need the image URL from the basket, pull the image URL from the basket. We can add more and more props to this as I want. So for example, we're currently learning JavaScript. Maybe I can add an isCurrent prop to this and say, yes, that's the current thing that we're teaching, right? And I'm saying, yes, is that currently what we're learning? I mean, we're learning React, but we're going to use JavaScript for the moment, right? We're currently learning that. We can make that isCurrent. I can then, of course, get that isCurrent value out of my props, right? Get it out of the basket, assign it to a local variable. And of course, now that I have that, I can use some logic to, for example, decide what kind of output I want to have, or what I want this card's class and styling to look like. And now that makes it so that my JavaScript is now highlighted in yellow because that's the current thing. So it's really, really important, right? The argument you pass into this is called props with an S, and it's all of the props combined, right? I'm not specifying these functions to have lots and lots of different arguments. They all have one big argument, right? One big basket of attributes, a basket of props. And that's what this thing comes in as. Okay, note that I can, again, mix and match these. So like these topic cards don't have an isCurrent, which means their isCurrent is going to be undefined, which is a falsy value, so that works. Okay, and that's our structure here. Great. That's the idea. So again, it's really, really important that we name those props and we have that all together. Now, it's worth noting that this is feeling a little bit redundant, right? I'm taking my title and assigning it to the title. I'm taking my image URL, assigning it to the image URL, isCurrent, assigning it to isCurrent. It's a little redundant. It's a little bit repetitive. Luckily, we've actually learned a way that we can write that more concisely by using our object destructuring behavior. So remember that what I can do is I can use object destructuring to say, let's assign values to title, image URL, and isCurrent all at the same time by assigning the props object, remember this is an object, assign that object to these three values. So I can use a shortcut to have a single line of code to say, get me the three things I want out of the basket, where what gets passed in is a basket, and I get the three things I want out of the basket. And then, of course, I can use them to display my repeated content the way that I want. Okay. Importantly, props can be any kind of variable. They can be anything you want, right? Because again, it's just a value that goes into an object. So I can have a prop that can be an array. I could pass in an array of numbers as a prop to a component. I can even pass a function as a prop to a component. Because remember, functions are values. I can pass them around. And we're going to do this in order to specify callbacks into different components when we start adding in interactivity a little bit later. So this is a thing that we will do more of. So if I've got this whole set of things, the title, the image URL, and the isCurrent, I can actually decide to maybe I want to break those things apart a little bit. Maybe I want to be able to have a single object that's going to contain all those pieces. And I can actually do that. So I pre-built an array of different objects, each of which has a title and image, and for all these different topics I'm doing this. So I'm going to just define this. This is going to be my data. I'm just going to paste in an array. So this is my data. I'll call this my data array. I'm naming it like a constant because it's constant. So my data array is again a bunch of objects, each of which is a title, an image, and the title and an image. So I could, for example, say that I want this topic card not to take in a title and an image URL directly, but instead I might say, let's go ahead and have its topic data be whatever object comes out of this array. Maybe object at index 0, right? So let's take that HTML object that has a title and image and pass that guy around in. I'm going to rename these to be image real fast to get us where we need to go. Actually, we'll do it the same way. So I can pass in this object. And again, data array index 0, the thing at that index is an object, right? I'm passing in this guy. I think my topic data and your topic data here can be, again, the topic data index 0 or index 1, right? We're going to pass that guy in. Oop, topic data is equal. Oh, I copy pasted the whole thing. Sorry. This guy's topic data can be the same way. So again, I'm passing in multiple, I'm still passing in multiple props. I'm just sort of passing in an object along the way. So maybe not topic data, maybe topic object. All right. So now, if I could, let's see, we're probably going to crash. But as I console log my props, you see, now have a topic object, which is an object itself. So I can't assign the title out of my props because my props doesn't have a title. My props has a topic object along the way. So what I can do instead is I could define my topic object and my isCurrent coming out of the props. And then, of course, I can then define my topic image, my topic and image coming out of the topic object, right? So I can start sort of break. So I'm using this destructuring to kind of break these things up along the way. I've renamed this to be image, so I have to tweak this down here to become image. And now we get sort of the same kind of behavior, the same thing that I wanted. Why are you? Oh, it's because you don't. I gotta fix this. I gotta put the leading part in front of it. There we go. And there's our structure. Now we're back to where we need to be. So again, I can pass in multiple different props that can include objects and arrays and any kind of different data type that I want. And that's how we put these things together. Okay. Now, hopefully that well, maybe not hopefully, but you're probably looking at this and feeling pained slightly, like, oh my God, Joel, why are you referencing array index 0, 1, 2 directly? That seems really, really annoyingly redundant. It's an array. Can't you use a loop or something to be able to do this kind of work directly? And the answer is, yes, we can. And yes, we do. So the cool thing to note here, right? So here I have these 3 different topic cards, right? I'm going to get rid of the isCurrent part for a moment, just because I want to keep them all the same. So I have these 3 different topic cards that are all sort of siblings, right? They're all listed in a row inside my component. In JSX, you can render multiple elements as children of each other by rendering them as an array. So if I define a topic card array, right, and this is an array, and if my array has these 3 different topic cards inside of it, right, so there's 3 elements that are topic cards. Now, again, this is a little bit weird, right, because this is JSX, so these are HTML elements being sort of written into the middle of an array, but that's okay. We're allowed to do that because, again, think of this as just an element data type. It's a React element type, so this is an array of 3 React element data types. If I have that array of 3 React element data types, if I render that array as an inline expression, so I say make that topic array, put that sort of inside this div, JSX is going to render all 3 of those things as siblings of each other. So we end up getting the exact same effect that I had previously, right? Where it's now taking in my elements tab. Let me make this, no. That's fine. We'll skim through it, right? It's still putting those 3 divs, right? Again, my 3 topic cards, because each topic card looks like a div, as siblings of each other. So if I can get myself an array of elements, I can easily render that array of elements, right? This can be show the whole array of elements. Awesome. Cool. So what have I got? Well, check this out. Here's an array of objects, right? It's an array of objects. That's what I have to start with, right? That's my data, is an array of objects. This is my output. So here's my data, my array of objects. Here's my output that I want to have, which is an array of elements. And the question is, how can I use a loop to get myself from an array of objects to an array of elements? Well, if I'm moving from an array of one type into an array of another type, we have a function that's really, really good at converting from one array type, an array of one type, into an array of another type. And that function is map, which I can't type, map. The mapping function lets us map from an array of one type into an array of another type. So that's often what we're going to do. We're going to map from an array of data into an array of elements, an array of components that I want to see. So the way that this ends up looking, right, is, again, let's take our template for running map. So the map function always looks like new array is equal to old array.map each item into some transformed value. It's going to be something. I'm just going to empty array. I'm going to put an empty string for the moment, and then return that transformed element. Right. That's the structure we write for whenever calling the map function. We're going to take our old array, map each item into some transformed version, and that gets assigned into my new array. That's the template. We start with a template. Okay. Old array, in this case, is my data array. And each item that I'm mapping is a topic object. Right? I want to be very clear about what data types I'm working with along the way. The thing that I want to transform them into is going to be a topic card. So I can actually write that out, right? Let's take my topic card. And that's what I want to do, right? And then I want my topic object here to be whatever the topic object is. So I'm going to take each topic object and map it into a new topic card whose data, whose prop, happens to be that object along the way, right? Which I could have spread this out to make to be the image and the title, but I'm going to sort of just passing the whole object along as we go. So that's the kind of piece I want to be as my transformed element. And then that takes my transformed, and that's what I return to put into my new array. And of course, I'm calling my new array the topic card array, because again, that's what I want. So now I don't need the topic card array anymore. I can now have my data array gets mapped into an array of topic cards by transforming every topic object into a topic card. That now gives me my topic card array, which is now what I'm ending up showing, which creates my result of now I'm able to take my data and have my data map into my array of cards really, really quickly. which also means if we start adding in more topics. So for example, if I decide to make a new title, a new topic whose title is, I don't know, what's another thing that we can talk about? Let's have Bootstrap as its own thing, right? Assuming I've got an image, called as a bootstrap.png. It doesn't actually exist, so it's going to not render correctly. Oh, I forgot my comma. Right? I can modify my data, add and remove and adjust the content of my data, and it automatically creates new cards, automatically renders that data directly. So what I'm able to now do is I can just think about what data do I have? What does that data look like? How do I convert that data into displayed content? What does each data item look like in React? And then I can render that React content. So again, we start with the data, and then we are producing my output, right? Start with the data. What data do we have? What do we look like? And then we return what we look like in order to show all my content as I'm going. Awesome. So that's going to be the common way we're going to end up using a lot of props, right? Is we're going to often end up having some data, turning that into arrays of content, and then passing in those props to individual components. You can pass them in as objects of data, or you can pass them in as sort of individual titles and images. It will really depend on your context and what you're trying to do. I often like bundling it up into a single object. That said, don't pass in more data than you need, right? I don't want to pass the entire array into each topic card, because the topic card doesn't need the whole array. It only needs one item out of that topic. So pass in only the data that's needed as a way of sort of protecting your information and sort of keeping things scoped correctly. Okay, and that's our structure. The one last piece here, right? If we go to our console, if I scroll up, well, here, let me refresh the page so you can see it. If I scroll up a ways, you'll notice that I have another one of these warnings. Now, remember I said you should always fix warnings as soon as they show up. I skipped that because I was trying to cover some other pieces, but let's go back and actually fix this warning. Okay, this warning says that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So the idea here is that whenever I have an array, whenever I'm showing an array of content, we need to make sure each element in that array has a property called a key. So I need to make sure that each thing in this array has a key of some kind. Let me do it this way. The reason that we need to do that is because React needs to have a way of individually identifying each element in this list. That way, if the list changes over time, it changes dynamically, React is able to distinguish between which element is which without having to think about which element is at what position. Because array elements might move around, right? Like an element might be at the start, it might move to the end. A React wants to be able to keep track of that information. So it does that by using a unique key for each element. So I need to make sure that I'm giving them all a key prop. This has to be unique. It has to be distinct to each one, right? Each one needs its own something so they can be able to distinguish between them as all. So for example, I can't just give them all the word topic because then they're not unique along the way. So what I can then do is as I'm making these topic cards, I can give them their key, and the key can be whatever I want. It generally can be a string or it can't be an object. It needs to be a string or a number of some kind. So I'm going to generally give them a string of some sort. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and say, take my topic object, and let's use the title as the unique key. That assumes every title is unique. It doesn't have to be, and if it's not, you'll need to pick up some other unique identifier, but that'll work fine for our data. So that's going to let's give each element its own unique key. And then when we do that, that error message goes away. So again, the key here is used only for the fact that I'm producing an array. Each element in the array needs to have that key prop. Now note, I'm not putting the key on the div inside of here because the div isn't actually what I'm making an array of. I'm not making an array of divs. I'm making an array of topic cards. So each topic card needs its own key. If I had a list array, like an array of list items, right? Li, right? Li, Li, Li. If I had a bunch of these things, then each one of these guys would need a key, right? We're first key, second key, third, right? The key here is needed because I'm creating a list. So whenever you create an array of React components, or React elements of any kind, each element needs to have a key. So therefore, if you ever get that warning message, go look to see where do I have lists. And again, it'll tell you, right? So here, let me bring it back for a second. So React will tell you where the problem is, right? You're looking for a key property in the topic card inside the topic grid, right? So I can go look to see where's my topic card inside my topic grid, figure out where my array is, and make sure I'm giving a key to each element of my array. And that then will solve that warning so that you don't have a giant red block, so that way, if there's any actual errors that show up, you'll be able to see them. Cool. Awesome. And so this is how we use props. So again, I think that's everything about it, right? So the important part for props, the things to remember here, is that when we're specifying props, we specify them as attributes to HTML elements, and we can have multiple attributes along the way, right? Separate, space separated list. The component itself takes in a single argument, one argument called props, which we'll then generally destructure into its individual parts, right? We can pull those parts out of the basket. But remember, it comes in as one basket. It doesn't come in as a lot of different pieces. It comes in as a single basket, one thing for us to work with. And then what we'll generally do is we'll take, because we're often going to be trying to render a bunch of different things that are all slightly different, we'll often take our array or our data set of some kind, map that into a list, into an array of different elements or different components, each one of which has different props, and then render those things along the way. And that's how we can then start making our applications be data-driven, dynamically structured based on that data. You can have lots and lots of data to be able to easily sort of create a whole bunch of content, right? I've created all 5 of these cards by writing my topic card exactly once and just mapping from the data into the card. And that'll let you be able to then build your sort of data-driven applications to be able to show the content that you need and get our React apps up and running. The next steps will be then figuring out how we can manipulate this data in order to be able to render, or be able to change what content we're seeing in order to be able to add and remove and adjust the cards. And then we'll talk about that in the next time as we start going through how to make things interactive in React. But for now, take your data and think about what data do I have, right? Here's my data. What does that data look like? How do I convert from that data into components? And that's how you build out the content for your React apps.